Emergencies can happen anywhere and at any time. They vary in type, in size, and most importantly, they vary in the overall impact they can have on people and the environment. Now, more than ever, Canadians are aware of the importance of being prepared and planning ahead for these events whenever possible. For some emergencies, like floods and forest fires that are more predictable, government organizations have plans in place to better prepare for and respond to these events. These plans reassure Canadians that their government is prepared to deal with the more common emergencies that could threaten public safety. But what about emergencies that are less common? How do we prepare for unpredictable or even highly improbable events like a nuclear emergency? Even though the likelihood of a nuclear emergency occurring in Canada is extremely remote, planning and preparation for just such an emergency is conducted in much the same manner as for a flood or forest fire. In those provinces with nuclear power plants, each level of government has its own well-developed and detailed plans, and the capability to protect the residents during a nuclear emergency. For the utilities operating the nuclear power plant, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission requires these emergency plans as part of the plant's license to operate. New Brunswick Power has always maintained the safety of the Point Lepreau generating station by ensuring the latest safety systems and equipment are in place and by updating emergency response plans and procedures on a regular basis. In order to clearly demonstrate a response capability, plans need to be rigorously tested, especially when an emergency engages many organizations. At NB Power, regular drills and exercises are conducted with the province to test key elements of their plans. These drills are designed to examine select areas of response that are unique to a nuclear emergency, like the activation of monitoring and decontamination centers and evacuation of the public in affected areas. However, in order to fully test the robustness of these plans and measure New Brunswick's ability to respond to a nuclear emergency, something more complex and integrated was needed. A large, full-scale, realistic exercise was the best way to thoroughly test and challenge the strength of response plans in their entirety. One that would engage organizations at every level, from the operator through each level of government. Exercise Intrepid 2015 was a 2-day NB Power-sponsored exercise held in November 2015 and involved a simulated incident at the Point Lepreau generating station. The goals of this exercise were to test and demonstrate the ability of all participating organizations to work together effectively in responding to a nuclear emergency in order to identify areas where their plans and procedures could be improved.
The last layer of defense is emergency preparedness. So our interest is to see that the operator, that New Brunswick Power, can interface with all of their partners, the stakeholders, to ensure that there can be a seamless and very effective response to protect the public during a nuclear emergency.
In total, 30 organizations and over 1,500 people from every level of government participated in the exercise. Developing a realistic exercise of this size and scope was a complex and detailed process that took more than 12 months of hard work and dedicated planning. To achieve this, an exercise design team was assembled, which included representatives from the key organizations with a role in nuclear emergency response. An outside group was brought in to manage and coordinate the exercise, as well as to set up a virtual site for much of the simulation. To ensure a common understanding of goals and objectives, this design team participated in monthly meetings, major planning conferences, specialized workshops, and preparatory exercises throughout each stage of exercise development. The exercise design team was responsible for creating an environment that was as realistic as possible and one that would engage all of the organizations that would be involved in a response to a nuclear emergency.
There's many organizations involved in such an exercise. It's not simply the province. We're supported by federal departments. We're supported at the local level by first responders. Municipalities have a stake in this as well. So our function is really coordination of all the diverse elements that come to play in effecting an orderly and effective response.
One of the challenges organizations often face is a limited exercise window to carry out their response functions. To overcome this artificiality, Exercise Intrepid 2015 was conducted over 2 extended days, which made it possible for many participants to test specific elements of the response to a nuclear emergency. The scenario began on day 1 with a situation at the Point Lepreau generating station that was complicated by a loss of power and a severe weather event. Notifications to external agencies were made in accordance with the station's on-site response procedures. For the duration of the first day, the problem was contained at the plant, which allowed NB Power to fully test their on-site plans. This included the opportunity to deploy and operate their emergency mitigation equipment. Medical personnel were also tested at the plant in their handling and treatment of a contaminated casualty that required transport to St. John Regional Hospital. Meanwhile, regional, provincial, and federal organizations took precautionary measures to keep the public safe in the event that the situation worsened. The province was able to test their emergency notification system and alerted residents living within 20 kilometers of the plant of the developing situation. As part of the protective actions, the province, with the support of NB Power, also set up a monitoring and decontamination center in the event that an evacuation were to be ordered. Many organizations were also on standby to coordinate and set up reception centers and animal shelters that would receive evacuees and their pets. At the end of the first day, NB Power was dealing with an emergency on site, and the province was ready and positioned to quickly respond if the situation deteriorated. On day 2 of the exercise, organizations arrived at their emergency operations centers to learn that the situation at the plant did in fact worsen through the night. The province and the CNSC were informed that there would be a release of radioactive material to the environment within 12 hours.
The local residents within the 20-kilometer zone will be evacuated, as well as the local school. You will not be allowed into the area. We have traffic control points that are set up coming out west out of St. John, east out of St. Stephen. Highway 1 is shut down at Penfield and Prince of Wales, so people will not be getting any further east or west from those points.
After analyzing the simulated events and assessing the possible impact on the public, the New Brunswick Minister of Public Safety declared a state of emergency, and an evacuation of all residents living within 20 kilometers of the station was ordered. Residents were notified of the order and followed the instructions that were provided by the wardens. More than 100 residents living in the affected area volunteered to participate in the exercise as an evacuee. 2 reception centers were set up. Emergency social services were offered to arriving evacuees, allowing the Canadian Red Cross to fully test the operations of each reception center, including the provision of food, lodging, and medical assistance. At the same time, the Disaster Animal Response Team mobilized their personnel and equipment to accommodate displaced pets arriving with their evacuated owners at the reception center. As would be expected during a real nuclear emergency, area hospitals would likely receive a high volume of worried well concerned about their health and radiological contamination. During Exercise Intrepid, the St. John Regional Hospital was well equipped to manage the influx of people by setting up their decontamination tent in the ambulance bay. This allowed medical staff to quickly screen people for contamination and provide reassurance to members of the public that there were no health risks present. Meanwhile, the federal government was enacting the response plans and ensuring technical support was provided to the province in a coordinated and timely manner. Throughout the entire exercise, the Federal Nuclear Emergency Plan Technical Assessment Group was providing valuable data to the Provincial Emergency Operations Center for the purpose of decision-making to protect the safety of the public. By the end of day 2, organizations were tasked with managing the response to an ongoing release that continued right to the end of the exercise. Exercise Intrepid 2015 also tested communications with the public. A simulated media website was used to provide news articles, radio news stories, and 2 daily news video broadcasts about the event. This website made the exercise more realistic for the players by providing a news environment that simulated real-world news coverage. Since many Canadians look to social media as sources of credible information, sharing public messaging through simulated social media was also tested during the exercise. A very robust simulation cell was established at the Exercise Control Cell in Ottawa, which was responsible for ensuring that public affairs personnel were challenged with questions and concerns presented from the media and general public. The exercise website also provided a secure area where press releases and emergency bulletins could be posted and shared with other organizations with a role in public messaging, allowing them an additional mechanism to ensure their public messages were coordinated. Both NB Power and the province were proactive in the management of public awareness and conducted several press conferences throughout the exercise to provide valuable and current information to the members of the media and public. Exercise Intrepid 2015 created a unique platform that gave participating organizations the opportunity to fully test their plans, work with other organizations that would be involved in a collective response effort, and practice communications in a realistic and interactive environment.
Intrepid is unique. It gives an opportunity for all the different players to come together, to really say, how do the interfaces work? We assume certain things from each of our partners. Let's really test those, see if those interfaces are working, see if the information is flowing smoothly.
So, how did we do? Is Canada, and in particular, the province of New Brunswick, prepared to respond to a nuclear emergency at the Point-Lepreau generating station? Throughout Exercise Intrepid, emergency operations centers at the regional, provincial, and federal levels were challenged at a level not normally experienced through regular drills and exercises. Overall, participating organizations met all of their response objectives and were able to identify some areas that can be improved upon, all in an effort to optimize capability and ensure the continued preparedness of New Brunswick for this extremely unlikely event. Exercise Intrepid 2015 clearly demonstrated the ability of NB Power, the province of New Brunswick, and the various levels of government to coordinate the response to a nuclear emergency in an efficient and effective manner. New Brunswick is prepared. Now it's up to you as a Canadian to make sure that you are prepared too. If you live near a nuclear power plant, stay informed, have a plan, and know what to do in the unlikely event that an emergency could happen where you live. If you reside near the Point-Lepreau generating station, read the information packages that are sent to your home or visit these websites for more information.